USC is focused on three names, two in particular, which would be James Franklin at Penn State, Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, much to your happiness because that's your guy,
Mhm.
and some dude named Kalani Sitake, the head coach at BYU. Those seem to be the three names. Now, as far as status of those three go, um, Eric Bieniemy and Kalani Sitake have not engaged in a meaningful fashion at this point. And a lot of that is centered around the fact that both of those guys are, well, as you can imagine, pretty busy. Neither one of them needs to pull, a jumpsuit here, right? So if you look at Eric Bieniemy, he's working with the Chiefs. They're in the middle of their season. You look at Kalani Sitake, as we know, BYU is 3-0. They're on a meteoric rise. They're playing the best football perhaps that they've played in some time. Kalani Sitake's got a full plate just running this program. So he is not engaged. And frankly, he's third on this list. It seems like at this moment that James Franklin is the leading candidate. He has let it be known that he is interested in that job. Eric Bieniemy is a guy that USC is going to interview. It's going to be a matter of time as to when Eric Bieniemy gets interviewed, and I think they are also going to interview Kalani Sitake. In fact, it was expressed to me that Kalani Sitake is a guy that they want to interview before any decisions are made in the hiring process, mainly because, strictly Kalani speaking, the idea of a Polynesian head coach at USC is very exciting for the brass at USC. And a lot of people at USC feel like a Polynesian head coach who can recruit aggressively in the poly community, but also plays well up and down the West Coast, as well as Texas and Florida, and can go into places like Pennsylvania, can go into Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, get those big, beefy offensive linemen. That's really attractive to USC because they've never had that quotient. Their best recruiter in recent years was by far Pete Carroll and his staff. So it'll be interesting to see where USC goes in this search. But one thing is very clear that I also was told yesterday, and that is that USC is tired of losing talent to other programs in the conference. And ASU in particular has put USC on notice that USC is no longer the recruiting juggernaut that it was 5, 6, 7 years ago. And the thing that's interesting, and we've talked about this on this show,
Yeah.
the thing that's so interesting about Herm is not necessarily that Herm Edwards is out there recruiting. Herm Edwards has an incredible coaching staff. Now, they also, by the way, the elephant in the ASU room is that they also happen to have a recruiting scandal going on.
There's just that little thing.
But I mean, when I say to you, when I say to you, hey, Kalani Sitake, Polynesian head coach at USC, Jake, what comes to mind? What do you think when you hear that?
I think that he's the best of the three candidates. I think that's just the facts of the case. I think that Kalani Sitake is somebody who's shown his worth and proven his quality in taking BYU from being, just a mediocre program that's a big brand and has an ESPN contract to a team that is now coveted by conferences and coveted by people who want to make money and continue their livelihood. And I think that's a big jump. And now, this season you're 3-0 coming off of, last year was kind of a fluke season for everybody in sports, but if you go back, you think about, okay, 11 wins and then now you're 3-0, you're a big deal right now. That's just what it is. And I think that the whole idea of a poly head coach at USC is brilliant. It is exactly when you want to talk about recruiting and not losing talent to other schools and that whole side of college football. That's exactly what you need to do. Now, as far as Eric Bieniemy is concerned, I just think that Eric Bieniemy would be a quality hire. You know that he's ready to be a head coach. Yes, is there a bit more risk in that? Well, sure there is, right? Because he's never actually been a head coach. But I think we can all agree that Bieniemy's been in football long enough and done enough big things in the game that it warrants giving him an opportunity. So that's why I think he's in the conversation. But of these three guys, Bieniemy, Franklin, and Sitake, I would be looking at Sitake as my number one, Bieniemy is my number two, and James Franklin is the guy who I can call any day of the week and offer him the job, and he'll take it. So either way, we know for a fact we got one guy that they could hire, without a doubt. It's just a matter of who they really want to get.
Well, and I think one of the interesting conversations here very clearly is, well, how thirsty is James Franklin? Because you're at Penn State, and I think this is one of the questions that a lot of people are asking. And, it's a good question. You're at Penn State. Why are you looking to leave Penn State to go to USC? Penn State's a huge job. It's a brand. It is a heritage brand in college football. Now, obviously, there is a lot of tarnish and stain based on what happened during the Joe Paterno years. Maybe that plays a role in this. But do you really go from Penn State to USC? It's an interesting question. And I think as far as Eric Bieniemy and Kalani Sitake go, both of them being minorities, I think absolutely helps their search. I think equality is a huge platform at USC. And it is far more than just a talking point at USC. It is a way of doing business. And I think it makes a lot of sense that when you're talking about Eric Bieniemy, and frankly, again, all three of these gentlemen are minority candidates. But I think when you look at the plight of Eric Bieniemy and you say, okay, well, this is a guy who a lot of people feel like has been passed up because he's black. I think there is a lot of energy behind that at USC to give him every opportunity to win that job. And I think with Kalani Sitake, again, I think we all recognize, and I think college football recognizes the importance of the poly pipeline in your football program. Because when you're able to recruit the way that Kalani Sitake and his staff recruits, I mean, when Kalani calls you or when Kalani calls your football coach, you're taking the meeting.
Hey, this is Kalani Sitake at USC. That has a pretty nice sound to it.
That has a very nice ring to it.
Yeah.
As far as winning and power branding goes, that has a very nice ring to it. But here's the truth of the matter. I have a hard time believing Kalani Sitake is leaving BYU right now. And I think that is a real question that has to be asked. I know that USC is interested in Kalani Sitake. Is Kalani Sitake interested in USC? I would guess if you said to him, hey, would you want to be the head coach at USC? He goes, sure, but I'm not going to leave BYU to do that. Kalani has been outspoken. He has been very upfront with the fact that the BYU football job is his dream job. I mean, there is no other job, according to him, and you can go back and watch when he got hired, the press conference, there is no other job that he had ever wanted. And now you've got that job. You've got this team 3-0. You've got him top 15 in the country. Why are you out? Would you be out, supposedly be out, looking at the USC job? So I think, yeah, absolutely, USC would love to talk to Kalani Sitake. I don't know that Kalani's open to that. And I think it's a valid question because, again, I think James Franklin looks desperate. I think he is a guy that looks very thirsty to get out of Happy Valley for whatever reason. And I think Eric Bieniemy and Kalani Sitake are two better candidates than James Franklin is for this job.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I just think that the whole idea of a Polynesian head coach at USC is brilliant. I think it shows a clear understanding of what USC is and really what it can be and where it can go. And I think the main point with Kalani is that this guy has built a great recruiting platform at BYU, an independent, started from nothing. With all due respect to BYU, I think we could all agree that SC with the right head coach and the right setup is a powerhouse. There's just no way to deny that. And I think that no matter what, we've had our disagreements about where USC is and what they are right here today. I think we can all agree that provided they have the right head coach and the right mentality in that program, they can go to the moon, man. I mean that's what USC can be. And so I think for Kalani, the trouble is that, BYU is his dream job, but USC is not far behind. And I don't think USC is far behind for anybody. I don't think it's outlandish to call any of the top head coaching names and say, hey, we're USC. Would you be interested in our job? It's not like you're Stony Brook. It's not like you're some low-end program. So that's the challenge in this whole situation. And I always maintain, in coaching, hiring situations, there's always a dark horse. There's always someone you don't know about that's going to emerge at the end that nobody knew about. And I think you got to be on watch for that because these are the three names we have now are very solid head coaches. They're staples in the game, right? And Bieniemy obviously isn't a head coach. He is a coordinator, but at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer that he is more than ready and more than capable. So these are 3 candidates who are all very skilled and very good at what they do. It's just going to be a matter of logistics and who wants the job and who's ready to take the job. And so I think if you're like, I think the biggest wild card is Bieniemy. You're on one of the best teams in the NFL.
Yes.
You know, you have a cushy job. You have the best quarterback by most people's standards in the league. You've got a ton of offensive talent. And by the way, you're one of the most exciting offenses to watch week in and week out. So your job security is pretty damn good. So I don't know why you'd mess that up.
Yeah, and I just think that this is a very critical moment in history for BYU football. I think there's no doubt that Kalani Sitake is the right guy. He's the right man to lead BYU football for the next 10 years. Will that happen? It's going to be fascinating to watch. And, of course, then there is BYU and USF. A little breaking news overnight. And I will read you the word-for-word direct message that I received.
The DM.
Well, yeah, because I think it's significant.
And just to be clear, there was no vanish mode on this DM, right?
No, there wasn't, because this is somebody I talk to at BYU all the time. This person said, real question marks around Jaren's availability this week. Not quite a broken rib, but some thought is that we're not going to have him for the USF game.
Okay.
So Jaren Hall, as we all saw and watched on in horror, except you because your little punk ass fell asleep.
Yeah.
Not my problem.
At the end of the game last week against ASU, he is running roughshod all over the field and gets crushed at the goal line. And now it turns out that it wasn't just the wind getting knocked out of him.
Yeah.
Jaren Hall has some type of issue with a rib.
Yeah.
Now, we haven't been able to confirm or deny that it's broken. My guess is that this is not a broken rib, because if it was a broken rib, he'd unequivocally be out. It's USF. You're not going to risk that going into the meat of your schedule. So my guess is that he's dealing with something other than a broken rib, which could be a displaced rib. This could be a fractured rib.
Whatever it
This
is, it's
could be-
incredibly uncomfortable.
He's not going to be. Yeah, and you wouldn't risk it. You can put a flak jacket on a guy like this, and he can play. Why would you risk that against a team that, frankly, you should beat by 20 points?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, I could be wrong. I want to say they're favorited. What is
23.
it? 23. Yeah. I mean, this is a game where this feels like a game that is perfectly suited for Mr. Baylor Romney to come in and have a nice time. That's what this feels like. This feels like a game where you're going to say, "All right, Jaren, let's take a chill pill. You got us 3-0 for the, through our first 3 games. You got us off to a great start. Let's give you some time off. Let's get you healthy again, or at least, as close to 100% as we could possibly get you, and then we'll come back for, next week." So to me, I mean, I think that that's the smart move. The problem with that, though, is that you can never discount how bad an athlete wants to play and the willingness to sell his coach on the fact that he can play. And so this is one of the most important aspects of coaching. It's funny, in this whole USC head coaching thing, talking about Kalani, I think it's one of the most important skill sets a head coach, manager, whoever in any sport can have. Managing your players and protecting them from themselves is a huge thing. So, that needs to happen.
Well, I think one of the other things that you have to consider here is that this is I don't know, are we going to say downside? This is one of the adverse effects of playing Arizona, Utah, and Arizona State 3 straight weeks.
Yeah.
These are big boys. These are big bodies. Welcome to the Big 12, right? Welcome to the Pac-12. Welcome to the SEC. You're playing a much more physical style of football, and when you have the speed on defense, and frankly, Jaren is a very wanting rusher. He loves getting out and making plays with his legs. And this is why we say all the time on this show, I don't like mobile quarterbacks. I'd rather have a guy that is mobile to allow him to throw. I don't want a guy that's mobile that allows him to get out and break off 30-yard runs, because eventually, and I think we saw it last night, by the way, on Thursday Night Football as well.
Yep.
You had a young quarterback for the Texans just absolutely getting racked, sliding up in the pocket.
Yep.
When you are mobile and you are not, and Jaren is a fabulous thrower of the football. Please do not misconstrue what I'm saying.
You're saying that Jaren Hall sucks.
Jaren Hall can't throw the ball.
You're an idiot.
Asshole. Anyway, the point is, That was probably a little too far.
My fucking
Yeah,
ass.
well, there you go. Now you're dropping F-bombs,
Yeah,
Tommy.
sorry, my bad. Sorry.
My point is, it always makes you a little nervous. When Jaron's outside the pocket, I'm always holding my breath a little bit. So, you just need to be careful with that. But, it is, to me, Jaron Hall's probably not going to play tomorrow. From what I'm told, this is going to be a Saturday morning decision. I think the decision's made. You are fully focused on beating USF, but you're also fully aware that next week it's Utah State. And you have got to, or the next game on the schedule is Utah State. You've got to be ready for that. You're a 23-point favorite in this game, and let's be honest. Romney is a guy that you can bring in, hand him the football. He'll almost fall down in the backfield, but he's still going to throw a touchdown.
You're going to hand it to Baylor. He's going to hand it to the running backs.
Yeah.
Rocket science,
But
I
Baylor
know.
Romney's a hell of a quarterback. Let's also
I'm
not forget.
I'm not discounting that the guy can play, but this
he
is...
can not that he can play. Baylor Romney can step in for Jaron Hall and not miss a beat against a team like USF.
Yeah.
You're never going to be as athletic as Jaron Hall is. That's just not who Baylor's game is. But he's a guy that can play. He absolutely can throw the football. There is no doubt about that. I would expect BYU to win this game by 21 at least. I think saying that they're going to cover a 23-point number, even if it's at home, I think is asking an awful lot. But they're far more. You know what the difference between BYU and USF is? Is that BYU now is bigger. They are more physically imposing, but their big bodies are now more athletic. Their big bodies can get off the line of scrimmage. Their big bodies are into the backfield. It's guys like Tyler Algier who are linebackers playing running back.
They're going to punish you.
Yeah, and they're doing it well. And in this for USF, their problem is not going to be speed. Their problem is not going to be execution. Their problem is going to be physically keeping up with BYU's front line.
Yeah.
On both offense and defense. That's where this game's going to be won. BYU is starting to see that when you play 3 P5s in a row to start the season, you're going to have some attrition here.
Yeah.
You're not replacing Peely. Let's just get that out on the table right now. But this is a nice little opportunity in the schedule. I don't want to say a lull in the schedule, but this is a nice little opportunity in the schedule to get those bodies that are going to be in place of Peely in there and running your defense.
Yeah.
And I think that you have enough talent on offense to overcome the loss of Jaron Hall. I think you are going to be clock managing the hell out of this game. So I think, Pini Katoa is going to play a bigger role than normal. I'm not saying that this is a gimme game. That this isn't Utah and Weber. This isn't.
Yeah, but this is a game that they should comfortably win.
This isn't Alabama and Southern Mississippi.
Wichita State from Nowhereville Institute technical stuff.
The Weed Eater Building Technical Institute football team. But my point is, this is a game you should win by 3 scores.
Yeah.
And to me, that means that Algiers not gonna carry as much of the load in the second half as Peeny is. I think this also means that this gives you a good extended look at Baylor Romney. And
Which is important.
Yeah, and I think we all know that anytime you can get your backup quarterback meaningful reps in the middle of the season, that's very good for your program. Yeah. And by the way, again, when we talk about, the health of the BYU football program, you're starting to see now that you're getting to the point where you're a month into the season, your 2s, 3s, and 4s are now your 1s, 2s, and 3s. That there's a lot of guys who are pushing up the depth chart. So these are big moments. But it is unfortunate that Jaron Hall is I would put it at about 95% not going to play in this game because of this rib issue. I think we all knew when he got hit. And for those of you that were asleep, the hit was crushing. He laid down, and you could see there was an injury there. This was not getting the wind knocked out of him.
I'll drop that motherfucker.
But by the way, I really like BYU, and this feels like at 54 points,
30 spot.
Yeah, this feels like a 42-21 kind of game. This feels like a massive win for BYU.
Yeah, I think to me, I'm just telling you what I'm looking for is I'm looking for them to establish the run early and often. I want to see them, dominate this line up front, and I want to see them control the clock. I want to see them on 7-8 minute drives in controlling this
Absolutely.
game. You know, like you shouldn't be punting a whole hell of a lot in this game. Like, yeah, you're going to punt, but I'm talking about like, 20 points a half, that kind of football
I
for
think this is
BYU.
one of those games where you punt once, maybe twice.
Yeah.
And it's
And it's probably at the end of the game when it's not in doubt, like
yeah.
that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I just think that this is one of those games where it's not a throwaway game. It's not a garbage game. It is very
At all.
important. It is important for Baylor to get reps. And I also think that this offensive line still can get better. They're very good, but I still think they can get better. I still think that they can open up space for these backs. And I'm telling you, if this team has any aspirations of at the end of the season just being in the conversation for the college football playoff, I'm not saying getting in. I'm just saying be on ESPN in the conversation for the college football playoff. It all starts in these kind of games, right? It all starts with, okay, our offensive line consistently is opening up space for our backs to get to the second level, so we can average not 1 or 2 yards a carry, but we can average 5, 6 yards a carry.
Yeah, and I think also this is one of those statement games when you're talking about where BYU is positioned nationally.
Yes.
This is one of those statement games where people are going to pay attention to what you're doing now on a weekly basis, right? And I also think you have to start now looking at strength of schedule. And so how badly is Utah going to kick the crap out of Washington State? What do we expect out of ASU? The other thing that I think is really fascinating is anybody been paying attention to Virginia? Because Virginia has one of the best offenses in the country right now. And that's a team that is coming to Provo. Like, it's time to start building the resume and the case to get BYU into the playoff. And until they lose a game, you need to be building that resume.
Yes.
That's why I think that Baylor Romney is so critically important, because when you have a mobile quarterback, not to be redundant, that guy's going to miss time, right? We saw this repeatedly with Taysom Hill, but it's why you had so many guys behind him. And it's why that I think that you have to embrace the fact that, hey, he's got these ribs. Do not play him. Let Baylor Romney come in here and get comfortable being the chief here, right? Instead of being an Indian, let Baylor be the chief of the offense, and let's throw the ball, right? Let's come out. And if I'm BYU, and I don't know what you think about this, I'm not worried about sportsmanship. I'm worried about putting USF into the ground.
Yeah, I'm worried about kicking their ass.
That's
what I'm worried about.
I want to make a statement with this game. And if I am, not to interrupt you, but if I am Kalani Sitake, that's been my message all week long. Hey, this isn't a week off. This is a week where we're building our resume to be in the college football playoff, and we are putting USF underground. Yeah. We are burying them, and we are proving a point about who we are as a football program.
Yeah, that's literally what I was going to say. I think that the thing about Kalani is that this isn't just about BYU going undefeated anymore. When you're in the news about head coaching opportunities and your careers being talked about, and some of the things that you're doing are being talked about, I think that this affects your career. This affects recruiting. This obviously affects the end result, of course. So I just think that these kind of weeks, while on paper it's like, oh, it's USF, they're going to pound these guys, this is going to be a cruising victory. It's also important to understand that from a culture perspective on the team, mentally, this team needs to stay locked in, and I have zero doubts that there will be any issues mentally because Kalani has done such a good job. I think once they won the Holy War, you're like, okay, this team is prepared. This team is ready. This team understands that, like in the Holy War, this team understands that Utah's offensive line is not good. And that's where winning this game starts. So that's why I'm saying on a week in and week out basis, it's only been 3 weeks, but in a week in and week out basis, this team's been prepared. And that's what I think is the big win so far.
Yeah. Well, now you've got injuries to deal with, so it'll be interesting to see. Let's get some of the comments in here live on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, really appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe to the show. We are meteorically shooting up the subscriber charts.
Where is the subscriber check?
I'm not really sure what that means, the subscriber charts, but we are at just short 2194.
Okay,
just short of 2200.
Telling you guys, get in now. It's coming.
Subscribe now. At 2,500, we're giving away a Traeger Smoker. We're also going to give away this Xbox Series S that is sitting on the table. Hey, if you're watching the show right now with us on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up. It really helps the show grow. It really evangelizes the awesomeness.
Evangelizes.
Yeah, just hit the thumbs up. We appreciate it. And subscribe. Take a picture that you're subscribed. Tag The Monty Show. Hey, that's me. And SLC Supercars. That's Jake on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. All of them. One of them. It's up to you. It really does make a difference for the show. So please give us a thumbs up and a like. Let's get your comments in this morning. Dane, what's up? Dane first in. Morning, boys, he says. Kenny says, morning, boys, I'm alive. Yeah, Kenny, how we feeling today? How's the car? Q Sam says, morning. Morning, Q.
Wait, what's the stitch with the car?
Remember, Kenny the other day was like losing his mind because his car wouldn't start. It was like 1 in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, after work. Remember that?
That's right. He was listening to the show.
Yeah, freaking out. He was
That's
worried
right.
that like some crazy serial killer was going to come out of the dark. BYU fan CJ says, game day eve, go Cougs. Yeah, it is.
Yep.
Kenny says, good to be here. Whoa, we're coming close to 2,500.
I
Yes, we
know.
are.
It's coming quick.
And it's been, and that's the thing it's not cliche. I mean this wholeheartedly. Thank you guys. Like, we could not do what we do every day without you guys. We don't make money on this show, essentially. I mean, we buy you Xboxes and PS5s and Traeger smokers to give away, so it ain't like we're accumulating wealth. But this show is very enjoyable. This is a good show. I feel like we have a good community. Our listeners are very active in the show, so we really appreciate and that's why we read your comments every day, because we really love having you guys here. So the fact that you subscribe to the show and you listen to our podcast, we're doing 3,000 to 4,000 downloads a day on the audio portion of this podcast. That's crazy. I remember days where we were doing 10 or 20 downloads a day in total on the audio version of this podcast. We're doing 3,000 to 4,000 regularly now. And it's because you guys support our show, and I just cannot say thank you enough for that. A lot of people ask us why we're not in radio. Well, because we have a podcast, and our podcast does quite well. And if we're being honest, if we're getting 3 to 4 listens on audio, and if we're getting we routinely do about 5,000 video views a day on YouTube across our platform. So all of our different videos that we have up, our highlights or our live streams, we're starting to get close to 10,000 people a day hearing our voice. That's why we don't work on radio. We've had opportunities, it's because you guys support the show, and we really appreciate that. Ramiro says, morning, fellas. What's up? Chris Karn says, hearing Jaron Hall may not play. Crack ribs from the game. Yeah, we were talking about that, Chris. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it is. And again, if you're just tuning into the show right now, Jaron Hall is 95% not going to play in this game. I don't think he plays. I don't know why you would. He took that hit on the goal line against ASU really to end the game. And isn't that always how it happens?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, and that's the thing. You love a mobile quarterback until he gets hurt. I mean, that's the thing.
It's that game-breaking, back-breaking run. Oh, and then he gets hit and he gets hurt.
Yeah.
And it's like, here we go. Like, that's the bummer about it. So, yeah, Chris, I think you're exactly right. Cody Strickland says, I couldn't watch the game last night. So frustrating. I'm
not sure there was much of a game to watch, frankly.
I will say, though, I am impressed. I am impressed with how Sam Darnold's come out and played really good football. I mean, you look at what Zach Wilson's going through with the Jets, and everybody this week was in full panic mode because, well, he wasn't very good last week. I don't think a lot of this is on the quarterback. And I look at the way, Sam Darnold's playing 23 of 34 with 304 yards on the road in Houston. I don't care if Houston is playing with Girl Scouts on their defensive line. He still threw for 304 yards in a game in the NFL. And I'm not sure that Sam Darnold's a guy that we would have predicted doing that this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just give him a huge tip of the cap. The Texans are awful. And whatever's going on with Deshaun Watson, this is self-inflicted now. Come on. Who are we kidding? BYU fan CJ says, but he's a Mormon. Isn't that against their woke thinking? You mean Kalani at USC? I don't think
their woke thinking.
I don't think USC is woke. I think what USC is progressive. And I think one of the things, that's why I think you're seeing the 3 top candidates at USC are all minorities, right? And I think you're seeing that USC cares about equality. USC cares about inclusion. And I say, damn right, because there comes a point in time in this world where we've got to stop, discriminating against people that are, black or brown or a different skin color, or because they're, gay or LGBTQ, or all of a sudden they're bad people. And it's like, actually, they're not. Or, well, Eric Bieniemy's black. He's less qualified to be a head coach. Well, he's not. And at some point, I think the struggle is that acknowledging that fight and the plight of minorities to get top paying, top jobs and to get access to those jobs, there's a large sector of our population that won't even acknowledge that's an issue. And trust me, in pro sports, it's an issue. You look at the numbers, look at the Emmys. Like how many minorities won Emmy awards? It's sad how many did not. It's unbelievable. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's a different show. Dane says, what do you guys think pays more for a head coach, USC or BYU? Well, certainly USC, because you have a booster base there at USC. You have opportunities away from the game of football that you just don't have it at BYU. And that doesn't, by the way, I don't think that's particularly of interest to Kalani Sitake. I think Kalani is much more interested. His faith is incredibly important to him. His community is incredibly important to him. But I think the things that are appealing about USC for a guy like Kalani Sitake is his impact that he would be able to make on young people. And I don't mean football players. I mean, a la Pete Carroll, working in the streets at South Central at 2 a.m. Working with underprivileged kids, being able to go into tough neighborhoods and say, hey, come to USC, we can change your life. Understanding Kalani Sitake has always been a guy who talked to his young men about the opportunity that was in front of them and doing well for their families and respecting the opportunity, respecting the game, respecting themselves, respecting their families. Those opportunities only get magnified at an institution like USC, which is a fabulous, fabulous university.